Starch-rich foods are far more than just fuel for the body. They are essential nourishment for the brain. Among all the organs in the human body, the brain is the most energy-hungry. It accounts for only about 2% of total body weight, yet it consumes roughly 20% of our daily energy intake. That energy comes primarily in the form of glucose, the simple sugar derived from carbohydrate digestion, particularly from complex carbohydrates like starch. When consumed in the right forms, starch provides a steady, reliable stream of glucose that supports mental clarity, cognitive performance, memory, and emotional balance. While there is a growing trend to reduce carbohydrate intake in favor of high-fat or high-protein diets, this shift often overlooks the unique and irreplaceable role that starch plays in mental functioning. The brain is uniquely dependent on glucose as its preferred source of energy. Unlike muscles, which can utilize fat for fuel during prolonged activity, the brain has limited metabolic flexibility. In times of carbohydrate restriction, the brain is forced to rely on ketones, but this is a backup system, not a primary one. For optimal functioning, especially in learning, working, creating, and problem-solving, the brain thrives on a consistent supply of glucose. And this is exactly what starch-rich foods provide when chosen wisely. Complex starches, such as those found in oats, brown rice, lentils, sweet potatoes, barley, and whole grain breads, are digested more slowly than simple sugars. As a result, they release glucose into the bloodstream at a gradual pace, preventing the spikes and crashes in blood sugar that can leave a person feeling fatigued, irritable, or mentally foggy. This slow and sustained energy release is particularly beneficial for maintaining focus over extended periods, whether during school, work, or creative tasks. People who skip breakfast or rely on quick-digesting sugars often find themselves distracted and sluggish by mid-morning, while those who begin their day with a bowl of oatmeal or whole grain toast tend to experience more consistent concentration and sharper thinking. Even mild dips in blood glucose can affect mental performance. Research has shown that tasks requiring attention, memory recall, and executive function, like planning, organizing, and decision-making, are all sensitive to glucose availability. In fact, studies indicate that students and workers who consume balanced meals rich in complex carbohydrates perform better on cognitive tasks compared to those who consume meals high in fat or refined sugars. This doesn't mean that starch alone is responsible for good mental health, but it does play a foundational role, acting as the fuel that powers higher-level thinking. Starch-rich foods also interact with neurotransmitter systems in subtle and meaningful ways. Carbohydrate intake influences the availability of tryptophan, an amino acid that serves as a precursor to serotonin, the neurotransmitter associated with mood regulation, relaxation, and overall emotional well-being. When complex carbohydrates are consumed, insulin is released, which promotes the absorption of competing amino acids into the muscles, allowing more tryptophan to enter the brain. This process can improve mood and reduce anxiety, helping to create the emotional stability necessary for productive and focused mental work. In addition, many whole starch sources come packed with micronutrients that directly support brain health. B vitamins, especially thiamine, B1, niacin, B3, and folate, B9, are critical for neurotransmitter synthesis and energy production in the brain. Minerals like magnesium and iron, found in whole grains and legumes, help regulate nerve function and oxygen delivery to brain tissues. Antioxidants in starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes and pumpkins reduce oxidative stress, a contributor to cognitive decline. All of this means that starch-rich foods don't merely provide glucose, they provide a suite of nutrients that work in synergy to sustain mental clarity and neurological resilience. There's also the important issue of mental fatigue and burnout. In a world where people are constantly multitasking and under pressure to perform, the role of food in managing cognitive load is often underestimated. Many people experience afternoon energy dips and a decline in focus because their meals lack the slow-burning carbohydrates needed to power the brain throughout the day. Incorporating starch-rich foods into lunch and snacks can make a significant difference in how alert and composed a person feels later in the day. A simple brown rice bowl, a sweet potato salad, or a hearty lentil soup can deliver long-lasting brain fuel without the crash that follows sugary or caffeine-heavy alternatives. For children and adolescents whose brains are still developing, the importance of starch-rich foods is even greater. Their nutritional needs for cognitive development, learning, and memory formation are heightened, and without enough complex carbohydrates, they may struggle with attention, behavior, and academic performance. The same applies to older adults who are at risk of age-related cognitive decline. Maintaining a diet that includes a variety of starches from whole plant sources can help preserve brain function, delay memory loss, and support emotional well-being into later life. Importantly, the benefit of starch for brain health is not tied to quantity alone, but to quality. Highly processed starches, those stripped of fiber and nutrients, like white bread, pastries, and sugary cereals, offer little to no brain support. In fact, they often do the opposite, causing quick spikes and crashes in blood sugar that impair mental performance. On the other hand, whole food starches, rich in fiber and micronutrients, provide not just the fuel but also the structural support the brain needs to function at its best. Choosing these foods is an investment in mental stamina, productivity, and long-term cognitive resilience. So yes, starch is unquestionably good for health, especially brain health. When sourced from whole, unprocessed foods, starch offers the ideal combination of glucose and nutrients to support memory, focus, learning, and emotional balance. In a culture obsessed with cutting carbs, it's essential to recognize that the right kinds of starch are not just acceptable, they are essential. Far from clouding the mind, complex starches help clear it, energizing thought, enhancing stability, and making sustained cognitive effort possible. A starch-rich diet, chosen wisely, is one of the simplest, most powerful ways to feed not just the body but the mind.